So subscribers to my Substack at davidlynchlfc.co.uk were told over a month ago that Liverpool were closely tracking the Parma defender Giovanni Leoni. But as we get towards the end of this summer transfer window, it seems that things have stepped up a little from just tracking, and that Liverpool's interest is now very, very strong in the young Italian. And for that reason, I thought it was worth taking a deep dive into the player, learning a little bit more about him and how he might fit in at Liverpool and why exactly they are so keen on him. And just before I start that, I want to put in a little disclaimer as well that I have to admit that I'm not quite sure whether the chase for Leoni is alongside the chase for Marc Guéhi, whether they want both players or whether it's a case of one or the other. What I can say is that earlier in the window, very much my understanding was that Marc Guéhi was seen necessarily as a unique market opportunity that Liverpool might exploit because of his contract situation. And if they weren't able to get a deal over the line, maybe they would pivot back to that younger profile like a Lenny Yoro, like Levi Colwill, like Dean Howson in this window. And Leoni really does fit the bill in that regard. But I have seen reports that contradict that, and I don't pretend to know absolutely everything that's going on at Liverpool. So it's a really interesting story, and I can't give you a concrete answer, to be honest, on whether it's either or. But what we can confidently say at this point is that Liverpool definitely want to end this window with another centre-half brought in, and not just Marc Guéhi, who is a potential there, it's also Giovanni Leoni. So for that reason, let's take a little bit of a closer look at him, particularly as he has a €40 million price tag on his head, which I think makes him eminently gettable before the window closes. So we're going to take a little deep dive into his statistics, and I'll start really with the general stuff, not really the deep dive, but the surface level stuff about Leoni, and that is that he is 18 years old. He joined Parma from Serie B's Sampdoria, obviously a big club. He got relegated and he made that move last summer. He went on to make 17 appearances in Serie A last season. He's also appeared for international level as well, although only up to under-19s for his native Italy. And in terms of where he plays as a centre-half, that might seem like a silly thing to say, but I think it is very important. Some play on the right, some play on the left, and it is important in terms of they do have preferences there, and you can't tend to mix them up. So I want to give you a bit of insight into that, and look, bring up this graphic first. Now, Leoni is right-footed, but as you can see here, he can play on both sides of the defence and has played on both sides of the defence. So, comfortable as a right footer on the left-hand side. We see Virgil van Dijk do that, don't we? But he's equally comfortable on that right-hand side of the two centre-halves, and also actually right-back, though. I have to say, I don't really expect him to play right-back for Liverpool, given the demands of the position there. It doesn't seem like he's the type or the physical profile that Liverpool would put in that position. I'd say it's handy if you're a young defender coming in, a young centre-half, to be able to play on both sides, because your minutes tend to be limited, don't they? So, any opportunities you can get, if it's not just, I can replace this guy on the right-hand side of the centre-halves, if you can replace both of them, it's going to give you more chances to play more minutes. So I think that is a handy quality to have, really, in terms of being able to replace both Van Dijk or Canate if one was injured or it's a League Cup game or whatever. Now, in terms of, alluded to there, his kind of physical profile and why that wouldn't really put him at right back, and the reason for that is that he's 6'5", so an absolute monster. And I have to say, he looks pretty quick over the ground from what I've seen. Now, he's got that long stride, so that allows him to cover a lot of ground, and I think that's helpful for defending big spaces. Now, we know that that's something Liverpool definitely want from their centre-halves. They do tend to leave them isolated. They've got to be able to defend those big spaces, so they only got the pace to do that, certainly. And obviously, height is no bad thing when you're talking about the Premier League, is it? And the ability to go up against the incredible physical specimens in the Premier League, because for me, that's the thing that separates it from all the other European leagues, is that extra physicality there. Now, I'm talking about watching him in clips, and I have made an effort to really kind of take a closer look at him. And the reason why I think you should do that as well and watch him, and the reason why I'm not just taking the statistics as read in this situation, although you should always combine with the eye test, is because there is so little to go on there in terms of the numbers. Now, the reason for that is that he's only played 1,200 Serie A, or just over Serie A minutes in his entire career, 766 Serie B minutes in there, but it's such a small sample to go off, so the statistics are not what you would describe as comprehensive, really. And you have to say it's quite unlike Liverpool, really, to kind of go for that sort of signing. They do tend to have a limit on the minutes, or a lower limit, a minimum on the minutes that a player has played at the top level before they tend to want to sign them. And the reason is, the bigger the sample size, the more that you can see the issues in a player's game, the fact that maybe some of the upsides aren't as big upsides in reality when you stretch that out over a few games. So they tend to usually want more, and it does make you think that maybe something about him is flagged in their scouting or in the numbers that has made them think this kid is special. There's something he is doing here that nobody else is doing at that age that makes him very rare and a big talent. So there must be something special about him that they've picked out from either watching or just in that small sample size of numbers, as I say, because he hasn't played an awful lot of football at the top level. Now I think you can tell that he's impressive from the fact Liverpool wants him, the fact Inter Milan I believe to be in the mix as well. But of course, what does that actually look like? What are the aspects of his game that are outstanding at this point? Now, I'm going to show you his FBref profile here, which I think you might be surprised hearing that as soon as I bring it up now, look, it doesn't look massively impressive on face value. As I say, the small sample size has a lot to do with this. As I say, he's only 17 Serie A appearances last season, so kind of in and out of the team. But it's not an FBref profile that will absolutely blow you away. I think it's fair to say that. I think with the defensive stats, the one caveat would be, and I mention this all the time, is that defensive stats can be deceiving, because they're always volume stats, aren't they? But there's not anything in the passing either that makes you think, wow, this kid's unbelievable, Liverpool have to sign him. However, if you take a bit of a deeper dive into some of those numbers, you can maybe see a bit more what he's about. And I think one that's quite instructive really is his ability in duels. So bring up another graphic here to kind of show you how he does in that regard, and you can see wins 60.6% of his duels, 63% of his aerial duels, and for comparison, Canate is 66.2 and 70.8 in those two numbers respectively. I'm not going to compare him to Virgil van Dijk because I don't want to do that to an 18-year-old against the best centre-half in the world, but I think Canate may be the nicer comparison, but he's not a million miles apart. And I think probably the most crucial comparison here actually is to Jarell Quansah, who effectively, if Leoni were to sign, he'd be coming in to replace. It's that, as I say, that young profile they want, the guy who's going to be fourth choice centre half but has potential to be outstanding in the future. That's where Jarell Quansah found himself in the pecking order. And unfortunately for Liverpool, he wanted more. He wanted to play more frequently, and that's why he's not stuck around to do that. But they want someone with big potential similarly to come in. And so Leoni, the comparison with Jarell Quansah, I think, is fitting. And when you bring this up and you look at their duels percentage here, you can see that Leoni looks very, very impressive. Now, Quansah there, 44.7 and 41.2. And he, in terms of his duels won and aerial duels won, and he is 4 years older than Leoni. So that shows you that Leoni is winning duels at a pretty high percentage, a better percentage than Quansah. I think one caveat I would add there is, of course, and I mention this a lot, the Premier League is a more physical league than most leagues, but particularly Serie A, so probably harder to win duels there. But I do think that shows him to be, an outstanding young defender to be winning duels at that high percentage at such a young age. He is only 18. And I noticed another thing, actually, it's more kind of a stylistic thing in terms of his defending that maybe stood out to me. And as you can see here, this graphic shows he ranks incredibly highly for interceptions in Serie A. He's in fact in the 91st percentile for that. Now, Dean Howson was very, very big on interceptions. I think he was 99th percentile in all of Europe's top 5 leagues for that statistic. Now, again, that can maybe sometimes say something about the style of the team they play for, but I also think that might be something that Liverpool like there. Dean Howson was good at that. It shows something about you, I think, that ability to anticipate, to step out, to be front-footed in your defending. So he ranks very, very highly for interceptions, which I think says something at least about how he is as a defender. And when you watch the clips, you can see he does have that front-footedness. He's got the ability to outstrip players for pace when a ball goes in behind and intercept the ball as well. That was a feature of the clips I saw as well. So I do think that says something about him and something that maybe has flagged to Liverpool as a real positive in his game. But of course, I do always say that you can't just rely on being a good defender when you're playing for Liverpool, can you? You have to be good on the ball as well, because they do dominate possession. So how does Leoni look in terms of that? But if you look at the possession stats here for him from FBref again and just zone in on those, Nothing particularly great in there, you have to say. 23rd percentile for passes attempted in Europe's top 5 leagues, 56th percentile for completing those passes, 5th percentile for progressive passes, so he's not absolutely blowing you away there with incredible passing ability. But I also have to acknowledge that maybe there are some team effects at play here, and again, that is a big part of it. So Parma had the 17th most possession of any team in Serie A last season, of course finished 16th in the league as well. If you're a teenager in that situation, are you really particularly trying progressive passes constantly? Are you taking those risks in a team where you are the junior figure and you're just trying to play your way into it? Maybe not, because it feels a little bit risky to be doing that, and that's the kind of thing that might get you out the team in a team that's not doing too well as well. So I think there might be a team effect there. But I also think if you look here, this graphic seems to show that there is a capability to play those kind of long raking passes as well. So you can see here, these are his passes into the final third, and you can see some really nice sweeping ones, some really direct ones. So he is capable of playing those passes, but maybe doesn't do it as much at the moment because of the team he played for and the situation they found themselves in Serie A last season. So that's worth thinking about. And I think it's one to keep an eye on if he does come, but you just know that Liverpool would not really be interested in any young defender if they haven't shown some sort of capability on the ball. So I think the numbers may well be deceiving there. And as I say, when you look at him and you watch him on the clips, not bad on the ball at all. And those final third passes to me show that he's got that up his sleeve. So you would see a lot more of that quality at Liverpool. But as I say, it's always a very small sample size to go on. It's a really difficult player to judge for that reason, and maybe we all need to go out and watch a few more clips of him, maybe some full games as well, to get a better idea. But I'd say in conclusion really that he's a very interesting player. If he were to come in instead of Marc Guéhi, I'd say that puts a little bit of pressure on him because of Joe Gomez is injured, and then you do lose Canate. You're throwing in an 18-year-old who is new to the league. That might be a bit difficult. So, if you were to sign him, for me, looking at the numbers, there's not quite enough there to be certain he would thrive, but we will see what happens. There is still, of course, a long way to go in the window. It may be Marc Guéhi instead, but I think Leoni is definitely an interesting profile and one to really keep an eye on going forward. Even if he doesn't end up at Liverpool, let's see how he gets on, because that interest shows to me that he's a player with big potential. But I'm going to wrap it up there anyway. Do let me know your thoughts on the player, what you want to see Liverpool do at centre-half this summer before this window wraps up. Less than 3 weeks left now, so really exciting finish in place. And of course, that means I will be back, no doubt, with a transfer update very soon. Before then, if you can like and subscribe, you can also join me on TikTok at David Lynch LFC as well, and I'll see you guys very soon.